Happy 2025. It is the new year, and if you're anything like me, then you're gonna wanna go climbing this year. Now, maybe you've never been to a climbing gym, or maybe you've never climbed, so I'm gonna tell you 5 things that I wish I knew before I went to the climbing gym. Okay, the first thing that a lot of us do is sign a waiver. So if you're going to a climbing gym, they're likely gonna require you to do that. Now, to save some time, you could go on to their website and sign a waiver ahead of time, maybe on the car ride over. If you're not driving, if you're a passenger, you can fill that out. Now, something that I'm just now thinking of, if you're not 18 yet, most of the time you're gonna have to have a parent or guardian sign it for you. So that can be in person or online in most cases. Super basic, that's the ground level of where to start. Okay, next thing. Number 2, you're gonna need to know that there's a difference between top roping and bouldering. So bouldering is usually a lot lower to the ground and there aren't any ropes, there's no belays. You just fall onto a pad, usually a really comfy pad. And the difference between that and top roping is top roping, you have a rope. So it's really important to know which one you're trying to do because a gym might not have both. So super important to know the difference between those two, make sure that you have the right gear for it. So let's talk about gear. Whether you're top roping or bouldering, you're gonna need climbing shoes. If you're top roping, you're gonna need a harness. Most gyms are gonna have rental gear for you, whether that's for bouldering or top roping. So again, it's really important to know which one you're gonna go do. Another important thing is chalk. Now, most gyms, again, are gonna provide that for you. Chalk is gonna be really important. It's just like a powdery substance, really nice for getting some grip on your hands. So if you see a bunch of people reaching into pouch and pulling out some sort of white substance, that is most of the time climbing chalk at a climbing gym. Another funny piece of gear is this. It's not for brushing your teeth. This is actually for brushing holds. Now you might think it really silly, but a lot of these climbing holds get really chalky, believe it or not. And these are used to break off some of that chalk and get it as fresh as possible to increase the friction on those. So if you see a bunch of people brushing holds, that's super normal and you should try it out too, especially if you're grabbing some holds that are really slopey. Sometimes those can use a little bit of a brushing. Okay, let's talk anatomy of a boulder or a climb. Again, just super basics of how to start. You have starting tags in most gyms, and you will also notice that there's a bunch of different colors on the wall. So there's black there, there's green, there's red, and there's pink. And if you're brand new, it can be really overwhelming. Even if you're experienced, it can be really overwhelming. And this isn't even as dense as they come. But there's a method to the madness. This gym notes which particular sequence you're going up based off of a color. Now, not all gyms are gonna do that. A lot of other gyms have tape or some other way of noting which sequence or boulder or route, in the case of top roping, you're going up. So this one I mentioned, you follow a certain color up and you find the start tag. Now again, most gyms are gonna have some kind of note of how to start. So this one has a start tag. Sometimes there's a second start tag. So there's second start, and that just means that one hand needs to go on the second start, one hand needs to go on the start. You could go like this or like this, doesn't matter which hand is which. And you start the boulder by getting those. Once your feet have left the ground, again, generally speaking, you have started the boulder. Now, to finish a boulder, you stay on that particular sequence. So of course this one is red. You stay on just the red ones. Follow that up until you have reached the finish hold. So this gym finishes on the last hold. So you just match on it, you control it, and then you have completed the boulder. Now, other gyms aren't necessarily finishing on the last hold. Some of them are a top out. That means you can go over the top. Some of them, you grab the top of the wall. So that's just, you just need to talk to the gym and figure out what their particular rules are. So you saw that start tag, and on there, a lot of gyms are gonna have a V and then a number. The V and then the number has to do with how difficult it is, generally speaking. Now, this is a really important thing to know. A lot of gyms grade very differently. Grades are, you know, somewhat subjective, but they should be fairly consistent within that gym. So a V1 is generally speaking gonna be more easy than a V3. So a V0 is gonna be easier than a V1. And there's a chart in this gym over here. So again, generally speaking, V7, V8 is gonna be really advanced. VB stands for V beginner, and then V0 is this beginner. What I recommend is just finding a bunch of things to build some confidence if you haven't done this before, figure out how to fall, and that's the same thing for top roping. And then you don't need to go up all the way. You could go up halfway and then hop off. And that's, of course, in a top roping scenario. In a bouldering gym, like I had mentioned, there's a bunch of different sequences that you follow up, and sometimes you can kind of freestyle it. You don't have to always follow that sequence, especially if you're warming up or building some confidence to do that. The V scale is for bouldering. If you go to a top roping gym, there's gonna be a chart that has a 5 and then a dot and then a number. Again, the 5 is just gonna always be there, and then there's gonna be a dot, and then that number also notes the difficulty of it. So that is also a higher number, more difficult, lower number, easier, again, generally speaking. So a 5.8 is gonna be easier than a 5.13. The next thing that I wish I would have known is different features on the wall. So this is for both bouldering and tall wall, top roping stuff. This you might think is a black hold. Of course it is black and it is a hold, but this is considered a volume. Most of the time you can see if it's a volume, if it has a bunch of screw holes in it. In this gym, volumes are on for any given color. Different gyms have different rules for their volumes. Some gyms don't even have volumes, and that goes, the same is true for arêtes, so that's what this corner is. Some gyms say arête is off. That just means the corner is off. A lot of people ask what those holds are. The light gray ones, the big juggy things, and they're all over the gym. But what are they? They're not in any of the colors of any of the other climbs. Well, let me show you what they are. When you get to the top of a boulder, you have completed that boulder in 99.9% of the cases, and you need a way down. Some of the younger folk like to just hop down onto the mat, but older folk like myself need to use some assistance, so they use any other color and these down climb jugs. When you start climbing, you're gonna have a ton of fun, you're gonna get super energized, and you're gonna be really gung-ho. And one of the best things about bouldering is completing a boulder, and you might get really excited and want other people to complete boulders as well. And there's this phenomena called beta spray, and that's when somebody's climbing and you're giving unsolicited advice to them. Now, a lot of people do that and they have really good intentions, but climbing is kind of like a puzzle, and you might want to do that puzzle on your own without help. So common gym etiquette is to say, don't beta spray. So if somebody's on the boulder, don't yell at them and say, oh, you gotta do this particular sequence to get it, and don't give them that unsolicited advice. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe. And if you have any more tips and tricks of how to get started climbing, you should drop a comment, because I'm sure a lot of people are really interested. Thanks.